Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaylee and this is Dog-Eared Page. Today I'm coming at you with my July wrap-up. I'm so excited because it's my first wrap-up month video and I just can't wait to get into it. Because it's my first one, I'm going to explain how I intend to tackle the video and why do I always struggle so much to begin? Because this is my first wrap-up video, I'm going to explain how I will introduce the books in what order. I'm going to do graphic novels first, from my least favorite to my most favorite, and then I'm going to do my novels, same thing, least favorite to most favorite. This month I read 16 books, which is a lot for me, so I'm going to try and make this not epically long. I'll do my best. But on that note, let's get into it. So as for graphic novels, I read 6 graphic novels. 4 of them were 3 stars, 2 of them were 4 stars. No 5 stars this month, but what I read was decent. So let's get right into it. The first one I'm going to share with you is Lumberjanes Volume 1 by Noelle Stevenson. This graphic novel is about a group of girls at a camp that get into some weird shenanigans. The thing I'll say about it is that I think it went too fast. There were too many events that happened in succession instead of kind of fleshing out the events. So you didn't really get a feel for the characters. I think it would have been better suited if it went a little slower. I didn't really care about anybody in the camp. Also, I might add, it felt more like a middle grade novel, graphic novel, than it did a YA graphic novel, which might be why I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. The art style is pretty cute. Fun fact, the artist went to the same college I did, so I thought that was kind of interesting, and it was part of the reason that I wanted to read it, but the art didn't save the lack of story flow, so 3 stars. My second 3-star graphic novel read of the month was Snot Girl Volume 2 by Brian Lee O'Malley. I'm starting to realize that maybe Brian Lee O'Malley is not the graphic novelist for me. Snot Girl Volume 1 was also a 3-star for me, but I wanted to carry on and see if I'd feel any differently after the second volume. The answer is no. I don't really know what he is going for. It seems that that is a running theme in his work, as you'll see in my second Brian Lee O'Malley of the month. I liked the art style. I liked the concept behind it, which is that there's a woman who's a fashion blogger and she suffers from allergies to the point that she is on some like experimental drugs, and the drugs make her hallucinate. So a lot of what happens in the novel so far, you're not really sure if it's in her head or if it's truly happening, and it kind of makes me feel dumb, like I'm not really understanding what's happening, but I really just think it's like poorly woven. And I'll probably give Volume 3 a shot when it comes out, but if I still feel the same at the end of that, I probably will just cut it because I'm not feeling it. But I still give it 3 stars because the art's very pretty and the writing isn't terrible. It just doesn't make sense. On that note, another Brian Lee O'Malley, Lost at Sea. I read this for Booktubeathon, so I won't go too far into it, just that it's about a girl on a road trip with some people she went to school with but doesn't really know. She's struggling with herself, and her story is that she's lost her soul possibly to a cat. And that's kind of the story. Again, the art was neat, which is usually why I pick up a graphic novel and will be a running theme through probably all of my reviews. But I didn't feel invested, so 3 stars. My final 3-star graphic novel of the month is Kim Reaper, Volume 1 by Sarah Graley. This graphic novel was okay. I had high hopes. I like the idea of it. A girl is a Grim Reaper, a trial Grim Reaper, and another girl in her class has a crush on her, and the first time they speak, they get pulled into the realm in which she has to do a reaping. And again, like I said, for Lumberjanes, a lot happened in a little bit of time, and I didn't feel connected to anybody really in the story. The pros are that it's super diverse. You've got queer representation, you have all types of body types, you have different races. There's a lot of diversity within it, which was a perk. The art was very nice. Again, I always like an art style. It draws me to getting a graphic novel. But again, I didn't care what happened to the characters. I think things moved too fast. I understand it's a graphic novel and you're working within issues, but I still think that you can do more to develop relationships. And if you develop them too fast, you're going to lose me. And so 3 star. My first 4-star graphic novel is Only the End of the World Again by Neil Gaiman. I would probably be honest and say that part of the rating is because it's Neil Gaiman, and I basically love anything that he does. But it's probably more of like a 3.5 star. I read this for Booktubeathon, so again, I won't get too far into it, but it's about a werewolf in the town of Innsmouth, which is an H.P. Lovecraft created town, and it follows H.P. Lovecraft pretty heavily in terms of plot. Now, one of the things I didn't like about it is I picked this up thinking, it's a very thick graphic novel. A lot's going to happen. Not a lot happened, because this is the story and this is sketchbook. So there's a lot of background, which is cool. I mean, it's awesome to see how a graphic novel comes together. But it was only like one event, and it wasn't enough for me. I wish that there was more, that it was a series. I'm pretty certain that it's a standalone. I give it 4 stars. I'd probably say it's more of a 3.5 for anyone who's not a big Gaiman fan, or an H.P. Lovecraft fan, I guess. That's that. And lastly, I read Descender Volume 1. I have the 2nd volume, but just to have something to hold up that represents it. Descender Volume 1 I read early in the month, and I gave it back to my future brother-in-law, so I don't have it with me, but the premise is that it's a robot named Tim-21 who is made as a companion robot, and there's a bunch of them, and they're companions to kids that are their age. And this is kind of post-robot apocalypse, more or less, and now we're at a point where he doesn't know if his human is alive, and he's trying to find him. But he's up against people that are hunting him because scrappers are huge and robots generate a lot of money. So that's kind of the synopsis of the first volume. And I give it 4 stars. I really love Jeff Lemire. He's one of my favorite graphic novelists. So the writing is pretty great. The storyline is, as expected, pretty good. I didn't really have a whole lot of complaints for it. It's watercolor art, and watercolor is one of my favorite mediums, so that lent a hand to me loving it even more. But I can't wait to read the rest of it. I've already read this volume, but you'll hear about it next month. And I've got the rest from the library, so I'll be reading the rest, and you'll hear about those too. 4 stars. And that concludes the graphic novel portion, so we'll get into the novels now. Okay, so when it comes to novels, this month I read 1 2-star, 3 3-stars, 1 4-star, and 5 5-stars, which means I had a really good reading month. The first half of the year, I feel like I wasn't running into a whole lot of 5-star reads for me. It was a pretty harrowing month, I would say. But July changed it around, so let's just get into it. A lot of what I read are ebooks or audiobooks, unless I don't have a physical copy to hold up. You'll see a lot of interposed pictures here. So let's just get started with my number 2-star book. Usually, if I'm not feeling a novel to the point where it's going to go below a 3-star, I won't even waste my time. This novel had a lot of good reviews from people that I follow on Goodreads, and so I really expected to love it. And that novel is Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. I know it came in one of the subscription boxes this year, I think Owl Crate maybe, and everyone that I'd seen read it seem to like it, so my review is going to be kind of out there compared. And now I'm looking for my phone because, okay, I found my phone just in time for someone to call me. So I'm waiting for that call to end so I can explain my distaste for The Daughter of the Pirate King. Here's the thing, I really, really looked forward to a pirate novel because I haven't really read anything piratey, and I think that I would like it if I found one that was good. It's about a woman who is a pirate, the pirate king's daughter. I'll rewind and start that over. The daughter of the pirate king purposely gets herself kidnapped to board a ship as a prisoner to get a map for her father, the pirate king. So she purposely gets kidnapped, plays innocent, but really she's got an ulterior motive. Now, that sounds okay. That's fine. What I didn't like was, 1, the writing, 2, how she goes about using her powers. So let's get to the writing. All right, first and foremost, I don't like when an author feels like they're holding your hand. If you're going to tell me a story, tell it well enough that you don't have to give me a scene and then tell me what that scene meant. And I have one example, but there were like many within this book, and it's on my phone, so let me read to you that there's a moment where she says something like this. For a moment, his face drops, and a hint of sadness washes over him. Cool. If you told me enough of the background, you wouldn't have to then put this line in, which is, he's reflecting on some former time. I don't like that kind of writing. I don't like being told something that I'm supposed to glean from his character. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't need that extra bit of hand-holding. I don't know how else to say it. I guess I'm a little harsh on it. I did go to school for creative writing. It hasn't really done anything for me in terms of career, clearly. But I studied writing for long enough that that kind of way of writing really irks me. So that, in and of itself, made me go, I don't think I'm gonna like this. I'll give it a little bit more time and see. And then by the time I was like, no, this is not gonna be good for me, I was already halfway through and it was a small book, so I finished it. I promise my complaint will be over soon. Secondarily, I did not like the fact that what seemed going into it to be a book about a feminist pirate female ended up being the same old song and dance of, nothing's working for me, woe is me. Oh, I'm gonna use my sexuality to get what I need. That's exactly it. That's the only thing I can do at this point, is to lure this captain with my sexual prowess, and I will get the map by seducing him and everyone on this ship. You're a pirate. You're a badass. Your father is the pirate king. Anyway, the book is a series I probably will not finish. No, it's not probably. I won't finish it. That's it. I won't complain about any other books the way I complained about that one. Moving on. My first 3-star read is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. It is the origin story of the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland. I listened to it in an audiobook. It had a single narrator, which is sometimes hard for me to focus on, and because I listen to audiobooks usually while I'm doing other things like dishes and laundry and all the other adult things we have to do, I have a hard time focusing on a single narrator. She did a really good job of character voices and making the story at least interesting, but I think Marissa Meyer's writing wasn't for me in this book. The Lunar Chronicles have a special place in my heart because a couple of years ago I picked up Cinder, and I flew through the series after that. Like, I read, I think, all of them in a week, and it got me into YA fantasy. So, of course, it means something to me. And I actually just picked up Renegades too and have ripped through it. So it's not Marissa Meyer herself, but this specific novel wasn't so good in my opinion. The best part of it to me was the end when she becomes the Red Queen. That's not spoilery. We're in an origin story, am I right? So it was mediocre, 3-star. My next 3-star read is the first in a series, a trilogy, I do believe, called Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. It is told dossier style, which is cool. It worked for the story. It is about giant parts, like giant parts being found throughout the world. And the United States is the first to stumble upon it, so they try and like covertly get all of the parts and put it together so that they'll practically own this giant and get it to work before the rest of the world clues in. And the complaint I have about it is that I didn't really end up caring about the characters either in the long run. You'll see that a lot of my reviews that come down stars are because I don't care about the characters within a story. I'm a very character-driven person, and I think a lot of people are. I don't think I'm an outsider in that, but if I don't care about the characters, then the story comes secondary, and when things happen to people within Sleeping Giants, I wasn't like itching to keep going, but it was enough creativity and cool, like I liked it enough that I did finish it, and I already have the second book on hold, so I'm waiting for that to come in. So I'll finish the series for sure, but I don't expect it to blow me away. Part of the reason is that I've read other dossier style novels, and you'll see later in this video that some people just do it better. So it's 3-star, it's good. My next 3-star, if you watched my vlogs from the Booktubeathon, you won't be shocked to see this here, but The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, which is a story about a town called Sparrow, in which 200 years ago, 3 sisters, the Swan sisters, were drowned for witchcraft, and now they come back every summer and they haunt the town by taking over the bodies of women that live there, well, rather girls, they're teenagers, and boys get drowned every summer. I have a couple gripes with it. I will say that the thing that gave it 3 stars is that atmospherically, which you'll probably hear if you hear other people with less than stellar reviews say, the tone, the atmosphere, the town, all of that was well done. The writing itself was well done. The characters were not so much. They were flat. No one really stood out. The relationships built were too unbelievable in my opinion. I don't like insta-love stories. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think that people truly lay everything on the line for other people they barely know. When you put that in a story, I can't buy it. It doesn't matter what you do with the story, the twists, what have you. It doesn't work for me. And if Shay Earnshaw comes out with more novels, which I was just watching Sassy Cassie a couple days ago, and she mentioned that she'd heard Shay Earnshaw say that she has a few other story ideas that take place in the same atmosphere, the same environment, and if they get picked up, she'll more than willingly write them. And if that's the case, also I'll link Sassy Cassie down below so you can check it out. I'd read them. Definitely not like, this is a debut novel. I don't expect amazing things. It was well written in terms of actual language and tone, as I said, so I'm not against Shay Earnshaw, but I think that it fell short of what I was expecting. My first 4-star read is a thriller. It is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I had heard great things about this, and I read the synopsis, and I was a little weary because one of my least favorite tropes that we see often in thrillers these days is the unreliable narrator. And I'm sure you've heard at this point that the story is about an agoraphobic woman who struggles with also depression and anxiety, and she's at home all day spying on her neighbors. And at one point she thinks she witnesses a murder of her neighbor. The problem is that she's on a lot of medication, she drinks heavily, you're not supposed to mix the two, and thus she becomes an unreliable narrator. She starts to not be certain about whether she saw a murder or not, and the detectives that get involved and other people that get involved, no one really believes her because of her drinking problem and mixing with medications. And normally that will drive me away from a story, or at least take it down. Like I think of The Girl on the Train. I didn't like that book because nothing worked because she was drinking all the time. And by the end of it, I was like, I don't even care anymore. This made me care. There was the way that the story was told, the flashbacks. I don't know what it was about it specifically, but something about how it progressed fascinated me, and I liked the ending, which is always good in a thriller. I didn't see it coming, which is not typical for me in a thriller. Not saying I'm super smart, but I think all of us that read lots of thrillers start to pick up a, rhythm and can usually guess the ending to some degree. But I really liked it, so 4 stars. My first 5-star novel, which I checked out from the library and returned already, is One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. So it's another thriller. First 5-star. It is a YA thriller, so I've never read a YA thriller before, and I expected it to be, I guess, more bland than it was. The story is about 5 teenagers who are in detention under weird circumstances. None of them have like a friendship or relation to each other, and in that detention, one of them dies. So of course, because they were the 4 people left in the room with him, as well as the teacher, they're kind of under the microscope as to what relation do they have, who did it, who's lying about everything in their life that would have led to that point. It's told from the perspective of each character, and this is the exact opposite of all the 3 stars I gave. I really cared about all the characters. They were fleshed out, they each had motives, they all had wants, they all were very individual, and I cared. Like every time a chapter would end and we go into someone else, I'd be like, but I really wanted to keep going with her story, So I really, really liked it. I wasn't so much shocked at the ending as I was pleased with the ending, so what more can you ask for in a thriller than to be happy with how it ended? My next 5-star read is the one I referenced in Sleeping Giant's review, and that is Illuminae, the first in the Illuminae files. I listened to this on audiobook, and I mentioned before that full cast ensembles of an audiobook are like my heaven. I love them so much. The ability to differentiate characters without having to fully pay attention is like why I read an audiobook. They did a great job, but on top of that, the story was just well written. I don't want to go too far into it, but it's about space and a war, sort of, and the characters are really, you really feel for them. I have mentioned in previous videos that I've become a crier, but it still takes a bit for me to cry, and I was like taken off guard with the few times I did cry in this book, and it did happen a few times. But I also really, really loved I'd be like chopping up dinner, prepping for it, and laughing out loud with my headphones in, so I looked like a crazy person. It was really, really well done, and I immediately ended it and got Gemina, like instantly. I used an Audible credit to download that, and I've listened to that for Booktubeathon, as you may have seen, and now I'm on Obsidio, so I definitely liked it enough to keep going. It was an easy 5-star for me. The next 5-star read for me is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton. I haven't read magical realism regularly since I was a teenager. I used to love magical realism. Jo Mino, Amy Bender, these are names you probably don't see on BookTube very much, if at all, are the masters of my youth in terms of magical realism. So it felt really nice to bring some back. I obviously read a lot of fantasy, but magic and magical realism are 2 very different things. I don't want to give too much of the plot away, because I think it's one of those stories you really have to read to appreciate, and hearing too much about it will give too much away. If you are interested in hearing more about it before checking it out, though, I'll link Julie from Pages and Pens did like a whole video as she read the novel. It was a reread for her, so if you want to check it out, I'll link that video directly down below. But it's about a girl who's born with wings in a town where everyone else is normal, and it's her story. And it's beautifully written. it broke my heart and mended my heart, and it was so good, so good. 5-star read. Now my last 2 5-star reads of the month were my first 2 5-star reads of July, so it started out with a bang. And my first one, grab the book, 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I was shocked to love it as much as I did, and the reason is that I've tried to read her other trilogy in the Grishaverse, and I read the first one and I did not care for it at all. I didn't finish it, but I kept hearing that if you didn't like that, that doesn't mean you wouldn't like 6 of Crows, so I was like, alright, fine, I'll check it out from my library and give it a shot, and I'm so glad that I did, because this story itself is so heavily character driven, and I loved all 6 of the main characters. It's a heist story that brings them all together, and they're just so fascinating. And I like flew through it. It's kind of a large book. I slept on Leigh Bardugo because of the fact that I didn't like the first book in her Grisha trilogy, and I'm like the last person in the world, I think, to read 6 of Crows, so I'm not going to synopsis. I understand the fandom now, and I will read other things Leigh Bardugo puts out now, whereas before I thought maybe she just wasn't for me, but maybe she is. My 5th and final 5-star read of the month is unshocking to anyone who's seen my videos before or anyone who's been on BookTube, and that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like everybody loves this book. I haven't seen anyone give it below a 4-star. It is about Evelyn Hugo, a movie star, her life. She decides she's going to tell it uncensored, so she seeks out a journalist that's kind of an unknown nobody for, you know, a reason that is unknown to us as readers, and she tells her story uncensored to her. It's so good. When you hear that synopsis, you're like, it sounds pretty standard, it's okay, and that's what I thought, and it was getting so much hype, I had to check it out. I ate that book up. I think I read it in 2 days. I laughed, I cried. It's so good with its representation, with its fast-paced writing, how it pulls you in and it won't let you go. If you haven't checked it out yet, I don't know why, because everybody's talking about it. I don't know if I'll read something better this year, honestly, and contemporary is like my 2nd favorite genre, so to say that means a lot. I think you should check it out. So that concludes my July reading wrap-up. 16 books. It was a good month. I don't know if I'll beat 16 books the rest of the year, but there you have it, my first July wrap-up. If you've read any of the books below, or you intend to, or specifically if you've read Crooked Kingdom and you want to tell me how much you liked or didn't like it, that would be really cool. Let me know down below how your July went. If you're new here, subscribe. If you liked this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to connect with any of my social media accounts, Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, link down below. Otherwise, that's it for me today. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.